Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. The mindset that we bring to any situation plays a key part in overcoming challenges and really enjoying our unique paths in life. On Thoughtful Thursdays, I like to explore emotional topics that are relevant to CRNAs and other providers. I think of this as my therapy, and I hope you learn some tips and tricks that you can use along your own journey. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today, and now on with the show. Welcome to Thoughtful Thursdays on the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and as always, I like to start these shows off with a quote that gets me thinking. Frank Herbert once said, "The proximity of a desirable thing tempts one to overindulgence. On that path lies danger." Of course, we are now in the middle of the holiday season. After our Thanksgiving food coma, we are now treated to sweet treats galore, pies, cakes, and cookies with a glass of eggnog to wash it all down. Christmas hams and other meats surrounded by wonderful gravies, sauces, and puddings. Indulgent side dishes like potatoes done half a dozen ways, casseroles of every delight, and various holiday salads. Throw in some deviled eggs, and how can you say no to all of this deliciousness? I'm getting hungry already. I may gain a few pounds during the holidays, but as my father-in-law says, that's a January problem. The messaging that we receive during the holidays tends to be pretty conflicting, to say the least. From the idea of treat yourself to the opposite end, where indulgence is ultimately wrong and keeps us away from happiness. Everyone seems to have their own take on the subject. Is the truth somewhere in the middle? What does the science say? Well, in 2014, a study in the British Journal of Social Psychology explored how justifications for indulgence influence the translation of good intentions into action. What they found is that there are 6 primary ways that people justify indulgence to themselves. Number 1, they are deserving of indulgence. In short, I deserve a treat. Number 2, they're curious about the indulgence. Now I've had cookie dough ice cream and I've had cheesecake, but I've never tried cookie dough cheesecake ice cream with a caramel drizzle. Number 3, the indulgence is an exception to the norm. I don't normally eat pizza, so this one time is okay. Number 4, the indulgence can be compensated for later. I mean, how many of us tell ourselves that we'll just run an extra mile on the treadmill to work off some extra food that we had? Number 5, the tempting indulgence is merely available. If I don't eat this bagel right now, someone else in the break room will get it and I'll miss out. Number 6, the tempting indulgence is irresistible. I mean, you know me, I can't say no to chocolate, right? So the main takeaway from the study wasn't really hard to predict. The use of justifications can undermine strong intentions for self-control. But just because we indulge sometimes doesn't mean we can't find happiness. In fact, a 2020 study in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin explored the concept that hedonic goals pursuit is equally important for well-being as self-control. Decades of research show that self-control is associated with numerous positive outcomes. It keeps us aligned with our long-term goals and can have positive health benefits. But is there such a thing as too much self-control? Yes, we should regularly put our goals ahead of momentary pleasures, but denying yourself pleasure all the time has its own downfalls. People who are living happily and having satisfied lives are able to experience pleasure without being distracted by intrusive thoughts. They can just do something they enjoy and be fully in the moment with it. The idea that our pursuit of pleasure is an adaptive aspect of self-regulation and well-being has been largely neglected in the literature, but maybe it's time for a rethink. Just as you can have too much self-control, you can have too much indulgence too. Of course, we all know that. But the interesting thing is that the key to our happiness isn't dumping self-control and going wild, but understanding that both self-indulgence and self-discipline are equally important. They can complement each other so long as you find the right balance for you. But come to think of it, enjoying ourselves may be harder than we think. When you're doing something pleasurable, like relaxing in a hammock on a nice summer day or binging a new show on Netflix, are you fully able to enjoy yourself? Or do you catch yourself worrying about what you should be doing instead? This is important because the study found that our ability to experience pleasure is just as important to our happiness as self-control. We're conditioned to think that being hedonistic is easy, especially compared to self-control. But the distracting thoughts that I just mentioned can really take away from our enjoyment of the world around us. Instead of enjoying that hammock, you're too busy beating yourself up for not exercising instead. Or you eat the slice of pizza once in the last month and berate yourself for not choosing the salad. We can go through the motions of doing fun things, but we won't be happier if we can't be present during those experiences. Now, how do we get those pesky thoughts out of our heads so we can enjoy life? Well, funny enough, the answer to that question may actually be more self-control. Stick with me here. We can use self-control to turn our attention away from those thoughts toward the fun thing that we're actually trying to enjoy. The first way to do this is through mindfulness. Most people think of mindfulness as being about relaxation, but those who start to practice it quickly learn that it involves a great deal of self-control. Yet the more we practice and get good at mindfulness, the more relaxed we get. And then something wonderful happens. The better we get at mindfulness, the more present we become with what we're doing at any given time. And that makes us much better at actually having fun. Now, the second, less abstract technique for focusing on the fun is through internal dialogue. If a thought intrudes on your fun, have a quick chat with it. Hello there, self-control. I really value your input about needing to call the bug guy to come out and take care of that hornet's nest in my backyard. But right now, I'm trying to enjoy this afternoon at the bowling alley with my kids, which we both decided was valuable for my own mental health. So could you help me focus on having fun with my kids right now? I know you'll remind me of the tasks I need to get done later. Okay, I know that does sound silly, but the inner conversations you have with yourself can boost self-control over the different parts of your mind and body, as well as your ability to enjoy yourself. In wrapping up, I wanted to acknowledge that the holidays can be filled with both joy and stress, love and anxiety, laughter and tears. The idea of balancing the different parts of ourselves is not new, but we regularly neglect that during the holiday season just to power through it. Yes, stress spelled backwards is desserts, but those who thrive at this time of year are those who find the proper balance between catering to others and to themselves. We all have different needs at this time of year, and we should all tune into ourselves to make sure we don't overindulge or overdo things. Remember that self-care is not actually self-indulgence. Self-care is self-respect. And make sure you check out the show notes for links to the studies and articles that I use for the show. If you found value today, make sure you hit subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. I also want to hear from you. If you have a question, comment, or topic that you'd like me to cover in an upcoming show, make sure you rate and review on your podcast player. I check those all the time and cover those questions in future episodes. Be safe and take care of each other out there. This is Bobby Jones signing off. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On-Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On-Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.